the Kawasaki ZX4R. Let's go, buddy. Kawasaki ZX4R. Very interesting bike. Part of the Super Series bikes that they're producing now. And it has a 400cc inline 4, which is tiny when you think about it. But the red line on this bike is insane. We'll talk about more on the ride. Really a very interesting platform, super lightweight, just made to be enjoyed, if you will. It's a smaller bike frame, in my opinion, but that it doesn't disappoint. Very well styled. Got your single monoshock in the back. It's got Showa up front. Kawasaki's own Nissan brake products as well with your dual rotors. I mean, it again, Q on the bike, looks nice, nice package. I don't think the mirrors look as stupid as some of the other ones. And yeah, let's get on this thing and check it out. Let's try it. It's actually starting to rain. I hope they don't.
You said you had a YouTube channel?
Yeah.
What's it called?
BackDraft Bikes. It's here.
Oh, cool.
This is a Super Sport, and the guy was telling me all about it. We did a little bit of a walk through there. I went from riding the very first Ninja I've ever ridden in my life to this thing now, second. And this is the Super Sport edition, I guess is what they call this. He said, oh, it's an inline 4-cylinder, 400 cc's. So I kind of thought 400 cc's, that's tiny. That's like not even half the size of my S1000. What is this? So basically what he said was, no, this bike is a different breed, and it redlines at 16,000 RPMs. And the way that this engine works so well is by letting it, quote, eat. Let it eat. I said, oh, it must be similar to letting it cook. Well, you let it eat. Are you kidding me? This bike sounds like... Wow. I don't know if my microphone picked up the noise of this bike that it makes, but it's amazing. Absolutely amazing. It has a ram air system on it. It has Showa forks and rear suspension, dual, I believe, Nissan in the front. So this bike is tuned up, and it's small and lightweight. It's not, you know, as big and stretched out as the other bikes. So they're going for the very small, fast revving engine. Honestly, that's matted. I mean, it just doesn't want to do anything, right? But the way that this engine makes its power is way up high. So when I just took off of there, again, for 400 cc's, this thing is an animal. But if you're down low, there's nothing. There's nothing there. Isn't that wild? You're running this engine hotter than a lot of bikes redline. The bike almost feels like it's got a turbo and you have to let it spool up. That's kind of the feeling I get from it. The clutch on this bike is phenomenal too, and it's a cable clutch. And it's so lightweight, I could use it with one finger. I'm really surprised at the lack of power this has just by rolling on it on 6th gear. I mean, it really doesn't want to do anything at all. But I guess if you wind it up all the way in the higher RPMs, then it wants to eat. sounds amazing, and it does have a little bit of power when you start to get up around the 8,000 RPM range, which is insanity. But below that, not much at all. That's matted. That's matted. What an interesting concept, though. Such a small engine with such a high RPM range, and that's how you get your power. That's interesting. Now on the handlebars, I'll tell you, nice job on the vibration dampening. Really don't feel much, but I can tell you in the seat, right up the tailbone, this thing feels like I'm sitting on a lawnmower. And the note of the engine is really what gets you. It really, you feel like you're going a lot faster than you actually are, but we're really not going that fast. As far as the lightweight ability of this bike, though, this bike is very, very manageable. I would say this really reminds me of a Daytona that I once had from Triumph, but it's even smaller. So you've got a super small platform with a insanely high revving engine. Suspension on this bike, though, I will say is fairly stiff, but I mean, we're into a super sport mode bike, so you are not really chasing the comfort of suspension in a bike like this. You're looking to, get into the track. And that's kind of where one of these bikes would probably really come into its own, when you're just super high RPMs and you're up there and you're bouncing basically in and out of curves with it so high. You're gonna feel the power band just really envelop you. Not the most comfortable bike, though, I will say that. Not for my size, not for my build. There's a lot of pressure on the wrists. I feel like I'm ready to just go over the handlebars on this bike. It's so stiff. And there's nobody even in that car. Dirty trick. As far as this bike goes, this is a brand new model, and maybe to get a little bit more technical, let's let VoiceOver Pete take over and tell us a little bit about the development, engineering, and some of the specs. Hey, VoiceOver Pete. Let's go back to my early teenage years when, if you remember, the 400cc bikes were the thing to have. It's what all the cool kids were riding. And you remember, Honda made them, the CBR 400R. Kawasaki made them. They called it the ZX4R. Remember those bikes were super cool. They had all like the neon green. I just love the way those bikes look. Suzuki's Gixxer 400 was out there, and Yamaha's FCR 400 was out there. The reason why 400cc bikes were the thing back then was because of some laws in Japan where these were being made with a 400cc cap. Let's build a bike up to the limit and make it as fast as we can. And that's what all of the competition sparked, and that's why we got those bikes. But they pretty much phased out as engines got bigger and faster and more powerful. And now Kawasaki, thank you for putting a quarter in the jukebox and replaying this song. Kawasaki's brought this back. This ZX4R comes in an R and an RR version. And before I start cracking pirate jokes, you should know what the differences are between these two. First off, there's nothing as far as the engine is concerned, so you're not going to get more horsepower with an RR like some of the other bike manufacturers do. But what you are going to see is a quick shifter and a few other suspension related changes. That's about it. When you look at the differences between the two models, I really think a quick shifter is something I would definitely go for. I also really like the retro version of this that goes right back to the 90s. It's awesome. What do these engines make? Well, they make about 80 horsepower with the Ram Air option. That's a lot more than we had back then, especially with fuel injection, and you're not dealing with 4 carburetors. These bikes are ready to go, turnkey, bulletproof reliability from Kawasaki. I'll tell you my best thing about this, and I've already pointed it out in the beginning of this video, but it's the sound of the engine. It is just absolutely unbelievable. It's probably the best sounding bike I've ever ridden, just because you can wind this thing up until it sounds like it's about to blow. The redline at 16,000 RPMs is just absolutely unnatural, and the bike makes power all the way up to redline. So let's go. The other thing that I really liked about it was the power wasn't ridiculous. This bike didn't have a ton of power, but it definitely had power. It was very manageable. So if you were looking to get into a sport bike, but you don't have a ton of experience handling some sort of rocket ship that you're strapping yourself to, this is a great bike because it gives you plenty of time to let off the throttle. With the power band the way it is, it's just very gentle in the way that it delivers the power, but it's super fun and it sounds like you're going way faster than you are because of the ungodly 16,000 RPM redline. They look awesome, but they're super small. Now I am 6'4". I can tell you right now, this bike is not one I could buy because of my size. If you were 5'2", you could probably flat foot this bike because it is so small. But again, remember back in the day, that's what these bikes were going after. Super small, easy to ride, and that's what they wanted. Couple cons that I noticed on this. In the model that I rode, you could not adjust the suspension and it was quite stiff. The frame on this bike is steel, which is not the same as the other Ninjas that I've ridden. Their alloy and aluminum frames seem to perform a little bit better in my opinion, and I'm not sure why Kawasaki decided for a steel frame on this bike because it would have saved even more weight. The other thing too is that I noticed that this bike uses a lot of fuel after riding it for a little while. You'd think a 400cc would just basically sip the fuel, but it definitely did not. The price point on these bikes is actually very surprising. Again, going back to Kawasaki and all the bikes that I've been riding from them, I'm very surprised at how they're able to keep these things so cheap. The MSRP on this bike as I rode it was $9,000. $9,000 for a Super Sport. That's crazy. And then going up to the double R editions, you're adding maybe another $1,000. That's it. Maybe $1,000. Yeah, I absolutely love this bike. If you can get to a demo day, you've got to try one. You got to try it. You got to. Let's get back to the action.
This bike's engine is unnaturally high revving. It doesn't even feel normal to let the bike wind up that much. But once you do, you feel the power band just come on, which is again it's kind of not normal feeling. It's not the normal feel you feel with a bike. You just keep wanting to shift, but the bike's like, no, we want you to.